I've built a few gauge 1 live steam locomotives so far. This is the next one I'm going to build, and it's going to be scratch built and it's going to be live steam, and I hope you find the series of following videos interesting to watch. Hello, welcome to part 16 of the GWR Prairie tank scratch build. You may remember the last episode we finished off with our running chassis, so that was a nice milestone to achieve. The next thing we're going to look at, in the old drawing back of the wheels from one of the early episodes, we've got a leading wheel and a trailing wheel. So what I'm going to do now is start to make the pony trucks for these wheels. I'm going to make the front pony truck first for this wheel. What it looks like is, I'll draw one of my crude sketches. You basically got an axle box like that, and another one, oops, draw that a bit better, another one there, and these sit on an arrangement. It looks like it sort of goes back there, and there's a hole in there, and the axle obviously goes through here with the wheel sitting on here like so. So looking at the side, basically got a wheel, I'll show the axle box behind it, mounted on this plate that goes up a curve and fitted on the frame further back, and there's also a suspension arrangement that sits on here to give you some suspension and up and down. So what I will do first is make these axle boxes, and these are just made out of a half-inch square piece of brass bar. So I will set this up in the lathe and we'll start to make these axle boxes first. I've put my square brass bar in a 4-jaw chuck. These are independent jaws, so each jaw closes in independently. So obviously 4-jaw chucks are used for holding odd shaped pieces of material rather than a self-centering 3-jaw chuck. So with a 4-jaw chuck you adjust each jaw in slowly till you finally arrive on the centre. And the way I do it is I basically, to make sure I've got everything in the exact same position, I use a spirit level for each one, so I know it's that way. So I'll just show you that there now. That's reading just 1 thou. Just so I've got a reading there, 1 thou there. Swing that round. Use my level to make sure I've got the chuck, this piece on the same work plane, so to speak. It doesn't give me a false reading. And if we bring this in again, you see that is slightly out there. Let me just double check that. Make sure we've got it on the same plane as we had the other one. That's a bit more like it. Okay, so that's reading plus 1 thou each time, and I can do it for the other orientation as well. Let's get them level there. You can use a square as well against these faces. If you can get a square against it, that's another method of of setting this up to make sure you've got this all square. So let's get that level there and come back along. So again, that's reading just over 1 thou. So I know my square brass bar is running probably as true as you're going to get it. It's about 1 thou, more or less, but there's nothing in it that's going to cause us a problem there. Just check the other one, so make sure that that's the equivalent. And level there. And again, that's reading just over 1 thou. So we're running pretty central, so that's quite good. What I'll do now, the next thing is to centre drill this, put a centre drill hole, slocum drill, centre drill, and I'm going to then drill and ream this brass bar for the axles, and then I will cut them in half and get them to their right widths. But the next thing to do is to put use a centre drill just to get a starting point for the drilling and reaming. Got our centre drill in position, we're all set up just to drill the first starting point for our drilling and reaming. And that's it. That's all the centre drill does, is to create a starting point for our main drill. Right, got our drill. That's a few thou under our 3/16 diameter to leave a little bit for the reamer to take off. So we'll just start and go through with this drill first. So let me just gauge with my finger there as the drill depth was going down. I just wanted to make sure this was deep enough, because we're going to take 2 slices off here to for the main bearings. So that's okay. So I will now get my 3/16 reamer ready. Got the reamer ready, and I can just slowly go down to get the hole to the right finished size that we want. The axle is going to run inside this hole. I think the camera can see that just taking the excess material off to give our hole a nice size and diameter. I've hit the bottom of the hole now. Probably might need a little tweak more later on when I separate these, but that's the basic diameter hole reamed now. The next thing I will do, I'll just slice these off into our 2 pieces that we're going to need. Just slice off the pieces that we need. I've just scribed these, giving us an area to work in, and that should leave plenty of meat on there. Slicing through this now. There's the first one sliced off. I've got plenty of meat on there just to get this down to the right width. And what I'll have to do now is just take a little skim off here and mark out and cut the next piece off. Here's the 2 pieces cut off now, and I will now get these down to the width by soft soldering this on onto a little holder and putting this in the chuck, and then skimming these down to the right width. I think we've shown this process before for a method of machining something where you can't really hold it in the chuck. And what I normally do, I've got this little workpiece here, and I'm going to solder it put some soft solder on here and turn the gas on. And get this hot. Just to get some solder on here, like that. And now what we can do is sit that on there. Because this face is pretty clean, I've really no need to pre-solder it, and that's actually almost stuck on now. Alright, we'll let that cool down. Here it is, all cooled down now, and that's on there pretty tight. That's going to be tight enough for us to machine this thickness now. So I will transfer this over into the lathe and we'll skim this down to the right thickness. All set up in the lathe now, and as I said, it's just a case of skimming this down to what we want it to, the thickness we want it. That doesn't look too far off. Check that dimension. I see that solder's melted, and that just slide off and give that a quick wipe. Give this a quick wipe as well. Here's the finished parts now for the front pony truck. Basic components of it there. What I will quickly do is just assemble this, and you can see the item all assembled and ready to go. So just to finally finish up on this, I'll just show you basically where that fits in. This piece will fit in between the frames. This is a nice fit in here, the width of the frames. So this is held in place. Let's get that so you can see, and you get the idea how that fits in the frame there. And so this will articulate, so it will move. It'll just move left and right there, and that's basically how that fits together. The rear one, the rear pony truck, is pretty much the same idea, where it'll fit in. It's mounted across here on the trailing wheels. Will fit in here. There's a slot there for the axles where they will ride, but it's actually mounted on the frames and it fits. That's the point where the wheels will be. So that's the next thing I will do on the leading and trailing wheels. Right, here's the two bogies finished now. We've got the front bogie and the rear trailing one as well. Just give you a closer look at what they look like. This is the front one, and this will fit on the frame, and obviously this will ride forward. And the idea also is I've made like a little suspension type of thing, because when the front of the, if you like, the foot plate, the front of it comes down, that will just touch on there. So any movement up and down, it will just give me a little bit of suspension. And all that is a tiny little brass plug hollowed out with a spring in here. I've just put this in as a temporary measure, because I won't really know what the strength of this spring has to be until it's out on the track, and I can then check the trim. But you get the idea of how that will go along as a front bogie. And the same is true for the rear one also. Very similar arrangement. Show you on here. This is the trailing arm. This part sits in the frame. That sits in the frame like so, and that will trail. And again with this one, there's like a little bit of movement on here, but I suspect it will generally just fit. It will sit in that position, and it gives it the ability to, obviously, so it takes the curves. And as you can see, I've made like this little suspension arrangement. And when this one is in position, you get the idea how this works. This will fit in the frame. I've got to do the mounting points for the frame yet. I've mentioned a couple of times on these videos I want to take the frame apart as little as possible, but you get the idea. That sits in there. They will be screwed into position, and that will be allowed to just bob up and down, just to move up and down like so. As I said, obviously that's the foot plate there, and that will just to be against that foot plate. And again, I need to check the trim of the locomotive, how heavy it is, to determine what strength this spring has to be. But that will essentially be able to ride up and down, and it will be able to articulate on any of the bends like that. And equally, the front one will be mounted in the frames around this point. Just get that in so I can show you the relative position. Bit of a snug fit at the moment. I'll fiddle with that to try and get that in. Just jiggle this around slightly. This is a quite a snug fit. And also, what this will do, it will also strengthen the frames. I can use this as a brace for the frames as well. So that will sit in the position something along there, like that. That's as far as I'm going to go now with the trailing bogie and the leading one. What I should do at a later episode is I will fit these onto the frames, and we'll see that later on when there's something else when there's other items to be fitted. But that's essentially the two bogies that are now completed.